plasma. So where's the
Well,
energy?
the energy in this tube comes from the input flow of the air. So you're pumping a ton of air into this at high pressure, and you're not
air in, air out. It's an air pump.
Yeah. The idea with heat is that as you burn a fuel in a conventional sense, it's just expected that it goes away, right? So the fuel, it oxidizes, it becomes a lower form of its previous chemical composition, and that form does no longer possess the ability to oxidize any farther with the spontaneous ignition issue. So,
and its exhaust is bad for you, right? Yes.
Well, yeah, right, of course, because it's
that's what the typical thought is.
Right, unburned hydrocarbons, complex molecules of carbon and free radical chains that can very much damage the human body or biological tissue.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the CO2 part is not a problem. The plants have no issue eating that up. It's actually all the toxins and other stuff. It's like, you know, it's not the nicotine in the cigarette that kills you, right? It's everything else that comes along with it.
Mm-hmm.
So anyways, no, what heat does is effectively preheat the fuel as it's flowing, but it doesn't just simply preheat the fuel. It passes the already high temperature fuel through a heat exchanger, and also exhibiting a vortex action, which helps exchange the lowest energy molecules closest to the center and the highest energy ones near the edge. So what you're ending up with is just by the vortex action of the external tube and the internal tube, which the properly designed heat system, you're going to have a rotation. It's not going to just pass through a junction and then flow evenly around the entire pipe. It's not really effective. You want some kind of a nozzle where only half of the tube accessible to the incoming flow from the what do they call, evaporation chamber or bubbler chamber that is fed by the exhaust. But the idea basically behind heat is that all these fuels that we would normally consider completely burned and non-reactive are still burnable, and that system mixes them with just enough fuel and puts the conditions to be just about right so that they can still be reacted against, and it pre-energizes them, pre-magnetizes them so that they can start to coordinate and organize coherent states of gas or of gaseous, complex, burnable molecules once they enter the combustion chamber. So he's getting all kinds of weird element breakdown and transmutation effects and more elements coming out than we're in. The longer that you run it and keep on recycling the fuel until you basically reach a point where it is no longer burnable, you're going to end up with all kinds of weird elements and things that just weren't supposed to be there. And so that energy there is happening because of an electromagnetic phenomena. It's a quantum superposition field type of effect, and that is happening inside of what he calls the reaction chamber. It has to spread out, thin out, and increase velocity around the rod, increases its rotation, that sudden change in pressure. It creates a stronger electric field for the already ionized gases. And whenever you have a large amount of electric charge flowing in a vortex motion or a circular motion at all, you get cyclotron radiation and Bremsstrahlung radiation produced as a result, especially around something that's ferrous and has the ability to temporarily hold a field even while hot, as long as there's an external flux applied, like the rod that passes through the center. Pantone mentions magnetic field, too, to increase the effectiveness.
Amazing. So who's did Jota?
I don't know, but I'm this coil on. Let's see if it knocks out my signal.
Yeah, I want to bring this person on, but I also don't want it to be like a disruptor. Because
was he saying really... BS? Bring him on.
Works.
No, I mean someone that's gonna like come in and talk about things that are gonna get a instantly shadow banned or have the stream cut off.
You don't know who they are.
I'm gonna bring him in, but I'm just gonna put this full screen so we're not in. So
in case he do something weird. Okay.
Yeah. All right. So Dijota, what's up, man? You're live. Oh, he got killed. Yeah, we talk to smart people, man. I wish we could get the smart people on Joe Rogan's show to really.
I want to get that video within the video. If anybody has the video within the video that we were showing, could they please put it in the comments, please? I can't find it, and it's on YouTube. That's where they got it from.
Yeah, if anyone can post that in the comments, I'll make sure the mods, set it, let the link through. So if anyone can find that link on YouTube to that Malcolm Bendall video.
Yep. That's the one.
The original one. I don't know where his channel is or where it's on, but that would be awesome. All right, he's back. DeJoda, what is up, man?
Hey, I don't normally do this, so it's super weird for me, but I put a lot of time into studying the Malcolm Bendall lectures, and I have a pretty good grip on what that system's doing, and I just wanted to come here and share it, I guess.
Yeah, awesome, man. Well, we appreciate you taking the time and jumping on. There's big ups to people that can get the guts to come on a live stream like this and talk about this stuff. So
yeah, thanks. Yeah, so just I just want to explain it a little bit and then hopefully leave.
yeah.
Yeah, the system actually works on implosions. It's not explosions. He refers to, like, Malcolm Bendall refers to the past a lot to say, like, we've been using this tech. We've interacted with, say, aliens, and we've understood that this sacred geometry exists in the past. So he's leveraged that and Randall Carlson to do all the transmutation work on the back end. But so the magic trick with the engine, as far as I can understand, is that he ionizes all the air, and that lets the electrons be loose. So when he puts it through a microbubbler into the water, when the engine is running, it causes like pressure fluctuations, and it'll collapse those microbubbles, and it'll leave a toroid structure that is self-sustaining. All those electrons that were in that little tiny air bubble will collapse, and the electron structure will still be there even when the air is gone. And as the pressure fluctuations happen, I guess that just helps the microbubbles collapse more easily. So the plasmoids are created at that point, which is like a toroidal shape, self-sustaining structure. It'll come through there, and there's a condensation break right after that it will eliminate the liquid water and only keep gaseous water. And the plasmoids will be inside that gaseous water, and then it'll go into the tube structure. So I just need to breathe. This is I spent a lot of time studying all this, and I have notes and everything, and yeah, I just need to breathe because I do think this is world-changing stuff, and it's just a matter of understanding it, and then after that,
it is.
Sharing
it absolutely is, man. Super cavitation technology it was classified for like 20 years, and they were using it to build supersonic ICBMs and torpedoes.
Yeah, that stuff underwater, they cavitate the air in front of it, and
yep. It's all come out on, like, we've helped it come out on this channel through the last year and two, even more. We've been fighting for a lot of this tech to come out.
What about the stealth properties of it? Because you're leaving behind no heat signature.
I'm not familiar. If we can go back to the
let's let him keep going, though.
That'd be super cool. But, I don't have to. It's just my jam, man.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's a private chat too. If you want to share any links, or if you want to share your screen and bring some stuff up, I can let you do that as well.
I'm actually just at work, so I'm on the phone. So yeah, it goes the water vapor goes into the tube and is given like a spiral movement through the tube, and it comes up through it. So it's not fully explained in the lectures, but as far as I understand, the exhaust gas is put onto the outside, and as far as I understand, like, that is trying to donate electrons to the plasmoids that are coming up through the inner tube. Because when the plasmoids are created, they're in, say, like a low energy state. It's like a small toroid shape. Once you put more and more electrons into the plasmoid, it can expand it. They have like a minimum size and a maximum size, but expanding that plasmoid and then injecting it into the engine with the hydrocarbons, and then it's still not explained in the lectures, but setting off that spark is actually, as far as I understand, setting off a chain reaction where all of those charged up plasmoids with that are made of air or water in the vapor form, all of those charged up plasmoids will collapse and create an implosion. So that's like the biggest magic trick about the engine, is that it's an implosion type engine. It's not explosion. So when it causes that implosion, the valves move some more and lets it out to the other side. I'm not sure why the heat is happening, but there is heat generated doing that. And once the exhaust gas is put into the tube on the outer shell, so that'll spiral through there on the outside. As far as I understand, donate electrons to the inner tube. And the 3-2-1 ratio is it's actually using the magic trick that is the plasmoid. So the plasmoid self-sustaining structure flows through with all of this stuff, and what it's doing is that very centerpiece where the loop kind of happens in the middle. It has access to like the 0 point. That microscopic tiny piece in the center of the structure, the geometric shape, that is a 0 point. And in that you can do anything. So, well, not anything, but like, so the time is gone as a factor. So I'm just going off of what I remember from the lectures here. But when you're working within that space, the time factor is gone. And you have the ability to transmute things anyways. So that 3-2-1 ratio is actually using the geometry and that 0 point to reconstruct things differently once it cools out of a plasma state. So that's part of why the vortex tube has to be there, to take as much heat as possible and put it at the front end, so that all that heat is there. So when it cools out of the plasma state, it will cool into oxygen instead of like CO2 and whatnot. That's at the end of what I remember about the lectures, but I just wanted to share what I knew about it there, and I'm done. Any questions?
Interesting. You said you didn't know how they got the heat from the one.
Yeah, when the field
that
collapses.
That was generated due to one of the implosions, I thought, wasn't it? Or the speed of it. Or am I wrong?
Yeah, that seems fair. Like the amount of friction.
Yeah, the speed of it is like 100 times that of the other one. It's larger. So I thought that's what caused that. I could be wrong, but I swear it was because of the speed coming out of there.
Okay.
And remember, we're going in two different directions too. One's going one way and one's going the other. It's really weird. And then they equalize.
In the tubes? The tubes are going opposite directions.
Yes. See that? Where they actually see the opposite directions, but they somehow at the end they split the larger one that's the 300 degrees, let's say, compared to the one that's -50 or whatever they got. They got the craziest readings out of these things. Yeah. I actually found the videos, guys. So hang on one second here. If you look in the private chat, I found that whole video. It's only 20 minutes that we were taking a look at. It's Ballsy Thinking's the name of the channel. That is Malcolm Bendall's channel. That whole video is on there, and I guarantee you that explains a hell of a lot more than what we're going to be able to come up with They go over everything. Like I said, it's only 20 minutes, and I
Yeah, well,
put
this guy said he studied it, man. It's awesome to have him here with us to really break it down, the key parts of
well,
that.
I put it in the private chat here. If somebody can put it in the chat. Well,
Yeah.
actually, I'm a mod.
I mean, we could take a quick look at that too afterwards, and I'll just throw this quick down. This
Let
is
me
the one
throw it
that
into the
Ira
chat.
did, right?
To all the
Yeah,
people
I'll be
in the
watching that
chat
one too.
who think this is fake or unsure about this,
it's not that hard.
You have a theory describing of your own about how this vortex tube works. It's a real thing. You can buy one. You can test it out. And if you have your own theory, then you should publish a paper, because no scientist to date has like an explanation for how this thing really works. At
you know
that
what's
point,
really weird, Jeremy?
What's going on here?
The piece of copper, if it's like fucking 2 feet long, it doesn't matter what's going on in one area and what's going on in the other area. It all seems to become the same temperature. The fact that they have these temperature differences in such close regions of 6 inches is incredible. These temperature differences. And that's what they get into in this video. And you can look at the metal annealer, a guy that's been manipulating metal his entire life for rockets, utilizing heat, is blown away. You can see it in his eyes. He's shocked. He was a skeptic. He didn't believe in any of it. And that's what really pulled me into this, because you could, the look on his face, he's not bullshitting. This is real. In my opinion, it's really going on, and there'd be no reason for the guy to hoax. He's got big contracts and stuff like that with the military and build rockets and stuff. And right there's the link to the video, Jeremy. I put it in the private chat.
I mean, it was rediscovered by Paul Dirac in 1934. I mean, if you don't know who Paul Dirac was, you shouldn't be discussing physics. Like, period.
Yeah, the fact that this thing, I want to call it a valve, but it's not really a valve. It's what it looks like, but it's incredible what's going on inside that thing, man.
It's an energy exchanger. I mean, you literally are talking relativistic effects. I know that, okay, for the same reason that people don't consider the relativistic effects, for the fact that electrons inside of a wire are moving and the protons are not, it'll be the same thing here. The relativistic effects of these semi-ionized states, or just the kinematic motion of the physical molecules, does a slight conversion of the emitted radio wavelengths in terms of the Brownian motion and the kinetic variance of these air molecules. And because the ones on the outside are moving faster, they're going to have a non-even distribution of energy exchange with the vortex on the inside.
Do you think the high pressure and speed is what gives it the much higher temperature?
The speed is actually what really gives it the biggest temperature difference.
That's what I thought too. It had to be the speed.
Yep. High pressure is usually necessary to achieve the speed under atmospheric conditions, but you could design hypersonic nozzles where you get this kind of effect here, and it's concentrated.
It's the pressure too. The pressure.
It's always going to give you friction. Friction is going to give you heat.
It says.
I always thought it was the that point, like why there's like such a huge differential between like the cold spot and the hot spot, but it's on a piece of copper that should conduct across that. I always thought that like that 0 point, like that instant switch is like the moment that the plasma condenses into oxygen, like it transmutes in that position. And that's why, like when it drops down, it can't hold that heat, and the vortex will bring let's just say that heat back to the front end or whatever, but like but that's when it drops. Like when it transmutes, or when it like drops out of that like energy range and it has to transmute or whatever, that's when it will lose all that temperature.
What?
Right, it's a compression. It's a compression of the local vacuum variables surrounding.
Oh man.
What's wrong, Jeremy?
Particle in motion, or the molecule or atom in motion.
Well, there's a troll in the chat, and I just tried to kick him and give him a timeout, and I kicked out a guy named Frank Triggs instead on accident. Man, Frank.
Just tell Frank to put his name in there, and you should be able to reinstate him. It might take 24 hours though. Who's the troll?
I'm gonna go on YouTube and
I got him. Whoever the troll is.
I just want to share one more thing, and I'm going to get out of here. I really appreciate being able to speak. I think spiritually, this is what I'm supposed to be doing, even though, to make money, it's not what I'm doing. So I'm really happy to be here and share what I do know, and the the theories presented by Malcolm Bendall, like that big crazy chart on how the universe works, not only in like our traditional physical ways, like Newton and Einsteinian ideas, but there's like octaves to things and frequencies and whatnot that work with each other. So his theories, I don't have a lot of training elsewhere in other theories besides what I do for work, but a lot of this stuff I just like leverage off of his theories, and I would recommend learning what he uses as theories for making this technology, because it might lead to unlocking an understanding of this stuff if it is real, and more than that, something far
Can I ask
greater.
what type of work you do? I mean, that you that grab
Engineering. I do engineering, so
in
it's
what field? Can I ask?
um
Does it have anything to do with temperatures?
yeah, it does.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Okay, well that
Everything.
makes sense, because that's one of the biggest things right here. I mean, we're talking about another thing about this is we were talking about free air conditioning for the rest of our lives.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Environmental controlment in any building ever for.
Oh, I know. This
How to work
is
on
I
insane.
agree with the engineering perspective, because that's ultimately what, at the end of the day, is going to make or break this tech.
Yeah.
There's a lot of big
What about
claims.
engine efficiency? What
Right.
about
There's
the
a lot of big
changes?
claims with this technology. A lot of big claims. These
A lot of
claims
big
need to be
claims.
tested. Now, these
And it's leveraged off a lot of things that like we've never ever talked about as a species before. Like we're talking about the universe isn't exactly as we perceive it. Like there's octaves and there's 0 point, and Malcolm Bendall goes into how there's a fifth dimension and a sixth dimension. There's a guy on YouTube that talks about how there's maths to explain that, but he's just far and few between. He's not part of the mainstream. But he talks about dimensional maths, and you have to apply each layer. Maybe that has something to do with it.
No, that's exactly right. I think you've pretty much nailed exactly why modern mathematicians and physicists absolutely freaking hate this subject. And it's because these maths are layered. So most of these are hyperbolic or parabolic or something in between relationships with each other. They are differential equations that generate the parabolic and hyperbolic states. The equations are an absolute nightmare for simple numbers.
Yeah, and Ken Wheeler goes into it from a non-mathematical perspective, where the conjugate geometry of the universe is a toroid, and the counter space, as much as he doesn't like that word or whatever, is the hyperboloid, so the hourglass on the inside. But both of them as a whole are important to understanding the universe in its totality, I guess.
And
Right,
Jeremy, once
exactly.
again, we talk about the toroid, the toroid again. The toroid's something that you and I started out talking about. You know what I'm talking about? The toroid at temperatures.
Yeah.
And look what goes on inside there. We have
Look what goes on inside that toroid. Yeah, exactly.
Cold.
Well, if you
It's
were
hot
spinning,
and cold, right? It
if
does.
you were spinning
What if
around
this
in a
is the
vortex
toroid?
or
What if
torus,
this is the actual toroid, right?
Even a magnetic field, like I think with the toroid,
Remember, Jeremy, it was a plasma. It was a it was a plasma.
Speaking of plasmas, anybody want to see this little styropyro demo live?
You're damn right.
All right, let's pop that up there.
I'm just going to share this one thing, and I'm going to actually get out of here. I really appreciate the talks. It's great.
Hey, man,
The
brother, if there's anything you want to plug, just do it now. And
I'd
my
have it back
emails
again for sure.
My email's right below. Please shoot me an email too, so we can stay connected. And
sure.
and
Please
anyone
come
else out there that has information you think you know better, do what this guy did. That's the right thing to do, is to be like, all right, I can help these guys, save them some time, explain this to them, jump it. This is what makes this community.
Yep.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, no, thank you guys for starting it. That's probably the hardest part. So the toroid, man, what was I going to go on there? Oh, yes. So a magnetic field is also a toroid. So something Ken Wheeler actually covers a lot is that 0 point in the center. When you drill a hole and you test the magnetic field strength right in the center between the two sides of the magnet, that's 0. As far as I understand. It's not like I've tested it, but you chop the magnet in half, and now there's a magnetic field there again.
Wow.
where that
seen the
zero
arrow here
used to
shows-
be.
We actually talked about that, and I have a transformer that operates by that. It's got two south poles squeezed together and the two large ceramic magnets glued at their poles. So it generates some strange or anomalous types of behavior. The one that I mentioned last time on the stream where I showed this coil, and I don't have it on this device, so I'm not going to show it again, but it is out there. This coil, before it was wrapped, was just a set of two magnets and glued together. As you move them in your hand and you allow the thing to swing around, it would exhibit unusual gyroscopic like behaviors. Actually, you know what? I can pop a light on. I can show the thing that I'm talking about.
Thanks, guys. I'll check you out on YouTube there. I'll be watching.
Cool, man.
If you want.
Awesome.
Nice seeing you, bro.
Yes.
So you can't show that. Oh, here we go. Put yourself on the screen there, bro, so we can see it better.
Oh God, yes.
So this is the transformer that I wound. And
Did you build that? You wound that, huh?
yeah,
It's
this
like
is
guitar
two
strings,
large
dude.
ring magnets. So I'll show you. I'll show you real quick. Just
You use guitar strings? All right.
No, they're
What
not.
brand?
I
Elixir?
made a special winding machine to make this wire out of two individual copper conductors. So if you look at the ends, I've got one, the outside edge of one connected to the inside edge of the other.
Yeah, I get it. Yeah.
There we go. And so they're all wound nice and tight. So my machine, I used a. You want to see the machine?
So you can take that, measure each side, and get continuity. Basically, is what you're.
Yeah, I can take two individual magnet wires and pump them into this thing.
Yeah.
So this spool gets filled up with one wire,
Check
continuous, and then there is that goes through this red tube, and then a second wire passes through the center hole here, and then this whole thing rotates around. So it'll wind up this wire at about 13 feet per hour, roughly thereabouts. Anyways, inside of this torus here are two magnets like this. So you can see there are two separate magnets here.
Man, they're huge.
And these two are flipped pole reversal. So this particular magnet arrangement, these are in attraction mode. These are large ceramic magnets, and these are smaller than the ones that this transformer is made of, as you can see. Yeah. They're smaller size. But I wanted to see if the gyroscopic effect would still occur at a smaller radius than the one that I had previously observed. But these I've got to flip around, glue together, and squeeze them together with some woodworking clamps until basically the glue is sealed, and they will hold themselves together with opposing poles. And what ends up being the case is that in the center we'll have our squeezed south pole, and on the outside faces we'll have our north pole. So if you go around it with a magnetometer at a far enough distance, you'll only measure a north pole always pointing towards this thing. But if you get up close to it, in the near field interaction, you'll still measure the south pole at the pinch point between the two poles. And it's important to understand the distinctiveness between the near field, which for this particular magnet extends about to here, the far field, which for this particular magnet extends about to here, and past that point, there's no detectable south pole whatsoever. There's only a north pole. It becomes a monopole as far as the outside reference frame sees it. And this, again, has to do with the velocity of the electrons inside of the aligned nuclear valences in this barium ferrite magnet. And they are all repolarizable, which is the point of this transformer. So this transformer being made of magnets instead of conventional ferrites is polarizable, so we can flip the pole orientation temporarily. And they'll want to spring back into place because the crystalline structure was generated in such a way where it's polarized along the length or the axes. So these domains, they want to line up along the arrow parallel with the windings. But we also have this orthogonal winding, right? That's the whole idea, is that there is this other winding that doesn't generate the current, but can actually pick up this external electric field generated by the magnetic flux stuck in the core. And that's what we're hoping to induce in the secondary coil of this two-wire system, 4-terminal system. But let me get over to the styropyro thing real quick, since we're already, on the cam. So I've got a syringe. I plugged the end with heat shrink. You
said that's a barium ferrite core?
Barium ferrite magnets. Yeah, your classic speaker magnets, the same kind that you find on the back end of any speaker.
So on the material, this is interesting for permeability. I guess the best cores are met glass they have 1,000,000 relative permeability as opposed to like 200,000, which you get from 99.95% pure ferrous annealed in hydrogen gas. Then let's see where barium ferrite is on this. But yeah, I don't know. That's interesting. Any particular reason you used barium ferrite for the core? And not, have you tried anything else?
Oh, other magnets? No, actually, this is the first time I seen the effect was when I was winding this thing. That's the first time that I seen this is before the wind on this. After I glued the two magnets together, I was holding it in my hand, and I had the two magnets. They come packaged in the box like this, where they're stuck together with poles aligned and facing. They will come prepackaged with a piece of cardboard between them, or a piece of like paperboard or something, just so that the surfaces are not physically contacting each other. But they're pole aligned when they ship to you. So big old fuel coming out of the end. After I squeezed them together, that was the first time that I ever experienced this effect. I was holding the magnet like this in my hands. I was letting it sort of hang here, and I lifted it up like this and let it fall. And as it fell, I noticed this tendency, or this force, to the point where it wanted to fall a lot faster, and it didn't want to rise quite as easily into the parallel with the ground position. Like this is parallel with the underneath surface, but in this position it tended to be quite stable. So if I tried to push it out of that, I get a bit of a torque, and then I'd also get a bit of a push back down. So it's probably because the electric fields at the scale where this is operating are so incredibly tight. They're so compacted on each other that they're just not having the same response to the gravitational force that one would expect. But anyway, so here's just a syringe, and we got the Tesla coil here. I'm just pulling a vacuum.
All right.
So we can
So
see
we saw earlier, but this is live.
Well, that's because I've got the lights on.
So explain what's going on here, please.
Sure.
You're pulling a vacuum.
So I've got a syringe here. The syringe is plugged at the end with heat shrink.
Yeah.
And as I pull back on the stopper, it begins to generate a vacuum. And at some point, the electric field from the Tesla coil is sufficient to start ionizing the gases inside of the partial vacuum.
That is so cool. You create a vacuum tube.
Well, it's just a basic vacuum chamber, right? Using a syringe. Yep. Just what Styro was showing earlier. We know that guy. You know, we've had some conversations.
Nice little demonstration, man. Used to sell them things in Spencer's.
What, a syringe and a Tesla coil?
No, they used to have those, you could grab a hold of them. You'd have the plasma. It'd be like a plasma chamber in there. You could put your hand on it. The electrons would go chase your hand down and stuff.
You should see the live demos, man.
I was going to say, did they ever make any of those that were like real and were huge?
They didn't. We did.
I was going to say, you guys. I know you've had to play around with that stuff.
Oh, yeah. We got a chance to actually...
Any videos you can show right now?
Well, again, I'm on a cell phone right now, and all my videos are on docked drives that are on the computer, so...
Oh, yeah. By the way, again, Malcolm Bendall's channel is called Ballsy Space Thinking. It looks pretty cool, man. I subbed to it. That was a guy that did the video earlier, kind of high-pitched voice in English, and he was talking with the other guy. And if they're talking about the thunderstorm generator, is basically what it is. This is so amazing.
No, it's not this one.
What are you looking for, the video? I have it in the chat, Jeremy.
This channel.
Have it in the private chat over here.
It is ballsy thinking. This is it.
See it? See where I put it?
It's Gary Ling. Who's Gary Ling?
Gary Ling was the guy that came along. He was the metal guy that did the annealing.
Oh, wow.
Jeremy, look in the chat over there. It says, I got the Malcolm Bendall video, guys. Here it is in the private chat over here in StreamYard. You can't miss it. Click on it.
It's there you go. That's this one for sure.
Well, it's just called Expert View. Malcolm Bendall's M-Smart Plasma
Molten
Thunderstone Generator.
atomic reconstruction technology, a third-party expert opinion.
Yep, that's it right
Ballsy
there.
thinking, the gender-agnostic antidote to sloppy thinking.
Well, if you follow
There
this
you go,
Ballsy
that's
Thinking channel for updates on the molten
20 minutes.
atomic reconstruction technology, MSART, then boy, is this a video for you. Today we have
He doesn't
a
have any
video
ads. He's not gonna come after
is
you.
of a third-party expert who visited the sort of reference site that we have for the big generators, so the 24 and the 18s, as opposed to the chonders, which is the small hemispheres. So that's 4, 3, and even 2 as a transition, which is well documented on the web now, particularly since Tesla Tech. But this one is a site that's a worldwide site for the deployment of the bigger generators at a power plant. And the person speaking is George Lush from Lush Heating Limited. So I'll let you do your own research on him. But George has a heck of a lot of knowledge of annealing. The company's been in existence since the 1950s, and his knowledge of heat treatment and annealing metals, which is obviously the 24 and the 18s have been annealed by George's company, is extraordinary. So he came to the reference site, the demo site, where we have a version of the Chonda, and he had a heat camera, which allowed him to measure different parts of the engine and the heat emanating from it. This was part of a bigger test that was being done on a Zoom call by literally many scientists from around the world who were looking at the test at the time. I sat him down after that experience and asked him his opinions, and this is it. Right, so Gary Ling here, and I'm in the presence of George Lush, whose company has been annealing the hemispheres on this project. And George has come down to visit us on site. And so, George, can you tell us a little bit about your background and who you are? And I know you like tea. So
yes, tea is the primary fuel.
Yes.
So yes, George Lush. My company is Lush Heat Treatment. We're aerospace heat treaters. We've been in the business for many decades. We started in 1952.
All right, we watched this already.
Right, go forward, man. When they go,
They need the
they're
hemispheres.
talking about the spheres. They showed them right there. They missed that part in the other video. That's the actual demonstration of power plant right there, which is pretty interesting. There you go. What's that remind you of, Jeremy? Just we won't even say it out loud, but it made me laugh.
Demon core, yeah.
Yeah,
The beryllium half shells.
yeah. But
No, I wouldn't know nothing about that.
But go. I was gonna say go back a little bit if you want it. Oh,
Do you want to watch? Let's just watch this part.
And was I right that
so
you
cool.
were
We're just done as a sort of temporary first evolution in just mild steel.
This guy here is no joke.
Not in the expectation that they would be a long-lived device, but purely to prove concept. So we ran an anneal on the material so that it was homogeneous and uniform and would lend itself to further working, and then the welding and every other operation that's gone on. So I've come down today to see it all running.
and the what size were the hemispheres?
Oh yes, now this was a 2-foot outer shell with an 18-inch inner shell on these. We did a couple of sets of these for early days proving concept, because we're fully conversant with the Feynman principle of everything that's going on here, that if your theory disagrees with experiment, it's wrong. So it's really been proving that point, and by goodness, hasn't it?
Hell yeah!
With the data that seems to be coming off everything here today, and being lucky enough to come and see it for myself.
So the 24s and the 18s,
Yes.
they were in stainless steel.
No, these are all just mild steel
Okay.
first iterations.
Yes.
We do have other material to hand which will be then the next evolution in stainless. But we're expecting to go beyond that into better materials for longevity. And as we're seeing, and then everyone else will discuss in much better detail than I do, the deformation and the magnetic properties that bottom is 300.
So this is I want to get back into this because this is the design that he's got. It's like the Vortex tube, but it's got this extra thing in the middle.
I do really like the reaction chamber there in the center, or well, not in the center, yet at the far right side, top right side.
Yeah,
that's a far better idea. Also, do notice in the drawing, and this is very important, that the output nozzle is significantly smaller in diameter than the total flow nozzle. So this is a critical part of that reaction chamber. It's actually the impedance match between the size of the input and output flow chambers, which the output nozzle is just a non-reactive. It's only got the one or singular center vortice inside of it, whereas the chamber all the way from the sphere to the bottom left is got a dual vortex geometry where they're exchanging energy and heat. So besides that important distinction, they do really nicely highlight in this diagram the plasmoid centralizing tool, which is just a rod, a magnetized rod. And it requires, because the temperature is high, that there is an externally applied magnetic field, which is not temperature sensitive. So usually the geomagnetic field is utilized for that purpose, but if it's not, you can of course use higher temperature ceramic magnets, just insulate them from the pipe. I've looked at some test data too. It seems to me that this technology actually works. I've never personally tested it.
Hey, did you see that? Go back to that drawing for 1 second, Jeremy. I want to look at something real quick.
Wait, where's the drawing?
The drawing we just had up, man. It was back. You went past it, where he was talking all that stuff that I didn't understand.
This?
The drawing we just had up a second ago, man. Keep going back. Keep going back. Right there. Okay. We have carburetor. No, wait. Hold on a minute, Jeremiah. Let me talk. We have carburetor in. We have exhaust manifold in. High hydrogen gas. That shouldn't say exhaust manifold. It should say intake manifold. That makes no sense. Your exhaust is you're exhausting outward. I've never heard of exhaust in.
Yeah, if we were to compare that
by this. That has me confused. That has to say intake manifold in.
Yeah, because if that's comparable to this part right here on the Vortex tube, this is where the air gets pushed in, and that's what supplies.
Am I right or wrong about that,
well,
Jeremy?
Let me explain. Okay, go back to the drawing. Let me explain. I know where you've seen the error.
You can't have an out there though.
Go back to the drawing real quick. Okay, so I'll explain it to you.
And then the temperature picking up again right down at the bottom in the elbow. So
okay, so you see on the right side there where it says carburetor in, the carburetor is a negative pressure device. So it's going to
I know what negative pressure is. They use that in diesel.
Well, any carburetor is going to be negative pressure on the intake compared to the outside atmosphere because the engine is sucking in the air. The carburetor in is a negative pressure. It's pulling the transmuted materials and the reactive materials out of the sphere zone. Okay, so it's pulling that in. That is a vacuum that's hooked up to the nozzle on the
what is it pulling in?
Okay, sorry to interject. Just in general, the exhaust going back into the system is implosion-based technology.
No,
and there's a lot of hydrogen systems that have it where the exhaust is actually fed back in.
Hang on a second. So it's actually recycled exhaust going back into the intakes. What it is.
Exactly, because you're producing some oxygen and hydrogen as your exhaust, so you're just recycling it back in, and that's where that
their exhaust is 20%. Their exhaust is 20% oxygen. So what they're stating is their exhaust out is going into the input of the manifold. I understand it now. It's just the way it's worded had me totally confused. Yes, that makes total sense. Now we're good because we have it's our input. It's what we're bringing in.
Yeah, that confused me at first too, Dan. Thanks for pointing that out.
Okay, because I want to have this right. I want to have this fucking fucking right. I want to be able to explain this to somebody. Excuse my language, but this has got me down. Go ahead, man. Let's go through the rest of it, Jeremiah.
Well, there it is. Okay, so you've got your vortex and heat exchange and your
Thank you, Burn Eye.
action all the way along that tube up to the point where it gets out to the expansion point. So it's not necessarily easy to see in the drawing, but you have an internal diameter sphere. The way that it's portrayed in the drawing is that it's made of some material such as copper, for example, which would be a very good temperature exchange medium. And then you have an outer sphere as well. Usually the outer sphere is made of stainless steel. That's what I personally used in earlier experiments. And so there's a heat exchange between the outside vortex flow of the outside sphere where the exhaust manifold in hot, dry gas is labeled on the diagram.
Yep. Probably oxygen from what we know.
Right. So it increases, like the entire length of the tube helps prepare all of this stuff. It magnetizes this. It causes it to take on a cyclotron motion. So any ionized particles will take on a cyclotron motion. If there's enough acceleration potential provided in the form of exhaust pressure in intake vacuum, then you'll have the appropriate acceleration plus the electric charge of the ions that are generated inside the engine combustion system, which do leave the exhaust and go through this whole system, where they can exchange both Brownian motion and thermionic energy, which are two different things, and they need to be distinctive in this case because we are really utilizing thermionic motion more than anything else in this particular situation. But that large sphere many times multiplies the total area. Think about the distance around the equator of the sphere compared to the distance of the air path around the central column near the plasmoid centraline tool. It's significantly more. So there's a primary preparation of the intake gases before they go through the reactor. They spiral around the magnetized tube that causes the cyclotron motion. Now they're activated. They go into the engine. They combust. They react in ways that they would never otherwise react. This is not a classic electrochemical reaction. This is not a classic burning or fire oxidization reaction. These operate by a different set of principles. They operate by a complex electric field and complex magnetic flux set of principles that you can follow with the Lorentz transform if you account for the individuated motion and get rid of the Heaviside Gibbs adaptations of the equations for Maxwell's motion of charged particles. But beyond that, this is actually a really straightforward system that's just not recognized because we currently do not have the mathematics to provide what all the different elements based on their mass and their ionization potential. Like, for example, if you have something with 6 protons and you take 1 electron off of it, so you only have 5 electrons, well, now you've got a positive ion, right? But the 6 proton atom is going to act different than the 8 proton atom or than the 12 proton atom. And the same thing, if you take exactly 1 electron off of each of those, they're going to have a different acceleration potential between the electrons, the nuclei, due to the mass difference. The goal is to get them to chase each other, to get them in sort of a dance with each other. And this type of association between an electron that's been freed from an individual gas molecule and its ionized state lacking 1 electron from its valence bands is called heterodyne resonance when they start to actually chase and then reverse each other. So it's a pretty interesting phenomenon when you get right down to it, because it ends up being that the negative electric potential, the scalar potential of the charge for the electron due to its larger path length and higher velocity will cause a change in the refractive index primarily through epsilon. And viewed from 90 degrees, it'll appear that it's changing mu, but technically it's just changing epsilon, which makes one wonder, are the two factors actually the same variable, And I think they are. I think it's just spin of the cosmic lattice nodes. It's just the individual orientation of each point that makes up the physical space-time we live in. But that's just my opinion, That's something that we may never be able to prove as human beings.
Yeah, well, that's just your opinion, man. It looks more like a meth pipe to me.
It does. Yeah.
Anyways, guys,
kind of chat, bro.
This is a stupid chat, man. We got a lot of people watching this, man. So this is great. Thanks everyone out there for being part of this and coming on board to watch this and be skeptical. Definitely do your homework into this. I was skeptical too, and I was like, oh my god, I found peer-reviewed scholarly sources confirming a lot of this stuff when I did the research. I encourage you to, I'm going to post some links in the description below for those people that want the expedited version of this. And you know what, we're going to keep investigating and researching this, and this should be easy enough to build. So I can design one of these.
Yeah,
we can throw
it's way easy to build. It's not at all difficult in any sense of the.
Well, what I want to do is I want to get the 3D printer files so we can put this up on Thingiverse, and I'll build a Hackaday project out of it so people can download it and build it all themselves and try it out they can 3D print it at home or wherever.
Yeah, man.
I can say this much: I used soda pop bottles to make my first Vortex tube.
Oh, there you go. I mean, it's like making a bong, making your first bong.
Yeah, those work. Whether you're making a bong or you're making a soda bottle Vortex charge separator and particle disintegrator, it's same materials actually. The only difference is, one you
got a bubbler.
An air
right. It's got a bubbler too. Yeah.
And a thunderstorm generator inside there, man. I think we have one of those too.
No, that we built already. That was many years ago. You should have seen the ground system, dude. You should have seen the copper chloride ground system that we poured down.
Really?
All these individual tendrils. Holy crap, there's a lot of copper buried there. I'm going to say there's probably about 60 or 70 pounds of copper in the ground in our original experimentation and transmission, Wilhelm Reich. Buster.
How dangerous is building this whole thing? I mean, how dangerous is building this whole generator system?
Dangerous isn't really the right word. I mean, just pay more attention to measurements, because if you can get the data, there's a lot of weird stuff that happens around these devices, things that will not seem to conform, but you've got to have some way to log and average the data. That's something that we didn't have. We had to do it on paper. It was a really inefficient method, but again, this was back in the day.
Wouldn't it be cool if we could make a ball lightning generator?
Yes,
we're working on that.
Yeah, man. We're gonna get these stabilized soliton plasmoids.
How would you go about that, Jeremy? I mean, we're creating plasma. We have
It's
to be able to escape and control it.
A video online.
How will we control it?
I have a video already on my exotic propulsion channel.
the thing is, this is dangerous stuff, guys.
I know it is. That's why I'd have to be around you guys even
like
about this.
Seriously, you shouldn't be experimenting with this stuff at home or doing it alone or without proper safety equipment and without proper experience and supervision. This is like some of this stuff is serious, and
always have a work partner and a buddy. When you're doing anything, because you can get hurt. I got hurt at work badly.
Yeah, well,
died recently, and I never thought it happened to me. I was off work for 4 months.
So I'm glad that there are stoners in this world, because weed helps stabilize and your neuroplasticity, so it helps you actually think outside the box. So they did a cannabinoid blocker test on mice, and this is a real study. You can go look this up. They blocked all the they blocked all the cannabinoid in mice, and they found that they couldn't learn. So they dropped a mouse in a pool, right? And every single time it would swim around to a platform until it found the platform, right? And there would be a platform that would get the mouse out of the thing. I wonder if I can find this.
Were these cats addicted to cannabinoid? I mean, not cats. Were these mice addicted to cannabinoids first, and then they blocked them?
No, they're just normal mice.
It matter if they blocked them if they never experienced.
The thing is, cannabinoids are they mimic atrazine, or it's a natural brain chemical, and it's you have a natural system inside your brain with these chemicals that are just like I think it's called atrazine.
It is. Go ahead.
If I may, I think Dan was asking, if you're not actually intaking of something known to contain high volumes of cannabinoids, why would it make a difference?
What they're not able to do is they're not able to learn. So that the mice are not able to learn new things. Basically, they trained them to drop them in a pool, and they would always swim to the platform where they knew where the platform was and get out. But when
with the anti-cannabinoids, this happened.
When they blocked the cannabinoids so that you didn't have any cannabinoids in your brain, the mice would swim around to the place where they learned the platform was, and until they drowned. They would not eventually give up. The other mice that had natural cannabinoid levels would eventually give up and start looking for another platform and swim around until.
And this is not an opiate blocker; it's a cannabis blocker.
That's the new input data versus the learned behavior phenomena. And apparently, what you're saying here is what has previously been titled and classified as cannabinoids in the human brain and, well, certainly in the mouse brain and potentially in the human brain, since there's a reason why we use mice for behavioral studies, because they do contain a similar set of neurons to human beings. But regardless, so what you're saying is the things that we call cannabinoid receptors are actually highly important in neurological processes, especially surrounding memory function. And when inhibited, the cannabinoid receptors are no longer capable of allowing a new behavior to be learned or even to encourage a change in the habitual behavior of the most strongly learned previous state.
I'll explain this a little bit better. Did you ever have that one friend that's like, oh, I'm quitting weed tomorrow, and about 2 weeks later, the guy can't spell, and he can't even get a sentence out of his mouth. He can't do this or he can't do that. And it's after he quit smoking. Did you ever have that one friend that's happened to?
Can't say I have.
That's what they're talking about here. And you're stating that this video is available on YouTube called Cannabinoid Blocker with mice. I got to find it, man. I want to see this.
Yeah, I'll find the study and I'll post it in the thing below.
But maybe that's what's wrong with me, because I can't seem to learn shit now at my age.
Yeah, your body has a natural endocannabinoid system. You can look this up. This is
so I should start getting high. Is what you're saying? Okay, cool.
It's a documented part of the natural body's endocrine system, and it's part of how your brain functions on a basic level. There's been studies on this and how it relates to neuroplasticity, and they find that, like people who are really ingrained and stuck in their ways can't think, like, especially old people get like this, and then they can't think outside the box, and they get grumpy and they get just really stuck in their own ways, and they just need to smoke some weed. So
maybe this would. Hey, did you see that the study that they're doing with old people in nursing homes that smoke marijuana, and how it's making the people that have what is it called, Alzheimer's and stuff, much better patients and stuff like that?
Yeah,
all these people are sitting around stoned out of their mind. They're like up in Seattle, and they're in nursing homes. They had the greatest time of their lives eating pizza, and before that they were totally depressed. They all wanted to kill themselves. These people can't take care of themselves, man. They walk around giving weed and food, it's like in the food and stuff. They're ingesting it. It's funny, man. You got to see it. It's incredible. I've never seen happy people in a nursing home in my life, man. I had to go into one for 9 years because I had a brother who lived in one for 9 years. These people were stoned to the bejesus spell, guys.
Dan, I try to get Dan to smoke weed. He won't even smoke. He doesn't smoke at all.
Nope. We were in a hotel room for 3 days with Michael Schratt, for Christ's sakes. And Michael Schratt is the most straightest guy you've ever seen in your life. How about it, Jeremy? He was scared to go to the bar in the hotel.
He wouldn't have a drink. He didn't.
He was like, "Are they construction workers?" He's like, "Are they construction workers over there?" I'm like, "Yeah, they probably are on like the 3rd floor and probably are building the highways down there." Gentlemen, I don't know if this is a safe place to sit. I'm just like, Jeremy, what is up with this dude, man? It's Michael Schratt's just real. I don't know how to explain him, but he's a wimp. Okay, sorry, Michael, but you're a wimp. You know you are. But Michael was like terrified of everything, wasn't he, Jeremy? But it was funny, man. It was, but I can't smoke.
I thought he was going to admit that he was an alien to us.
I know. Remember, you and I were like, is he an alien? That's the first thing we thought, because he's like a fucking robot, man. He's like a robot. And his sandwich is the most craziest thing I ever seen in my life. He ordered a sandwich with no bread. He's definitely was in California way too long. He ordered a sandwich with no
way. Bread. We were going to get Schratt a bunch of hookers and try to get him high and put it on film, man.
Gentlemen, are you drinking? I'm like, yeah, Michael, I'm over 21. Jeremy and me are pounding them down at the bar. Michael's like, I can't believe our bill at the bar was $22. I'm like, dude, I've spent $1,000 at the bar already at a tab, bro. He's like, it was $22, Dan. I'm like, we got a whole pizza, bro. And this was like in 16 or 17. It was funny, man. But Mike, it was fun with Michael, but he's just a different guy, man. He's definitely that guy you see on screen, man. He's all about UFOs 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You'll be sitting there in a chair. How about Jeremy? He came down at 9 o'clock in the morning. He says, I have something for you, gentlemen. He spent the entire morning at the printer he spent $1,700 on printer cartridges at this place, this library we were at. He printed so much stuff out, and he printed all this stuff out for us and handed it to us. He did more by 9 o'clock in the morning than Jeremy and I did all freaking weekend. Didn't he, dude? Didn't he, Jeremy? He had all this stuff printed out for us. It was fun, man.
Yo, he's at the library. Like he was already there. We're like, we woke up. We're like, where are you, man? He's like, I've been there since I was waiting outside the door for them to open. Like he camped out like Walmart for the shoppers on Black Friday.
What'd you and I do, bro? We went down and had our presidential breakfast for like 2 hours, and it was an incredible breakfast, man. You could eat anything, dude, for hours, man. I was down there like scoffing. You know, we were just eating up, and then we went down there like 11:30 noon. He had already been there for us. They at the end of the day, I couldn't believe it. They were like, "What gentlemen? What $1,700 for printer ink alone?" He used.
No lie,
$1,700 in printer ink,
Holy.
fellas. And then he paid the guy that helped him, who Jeremy and me think some kind of damn CIA agent. He controls this whole UFO area in West Virginia. What was the name of that town? Clarksville. It was strange what went on down there, dude. I was waiting for Jeremy and I to pull out of the parking lot and just being picked up by a giant TR-3B with Ed Fouché flying it and being just taken away forever. That's what I thought was going on. I thought we were being abducted. And yeah, Michael was in his own room, like down the hall and stuff. I'm sure there were tape recorders and all kinds of, agents and shit in that room. No, it was just really bizarre, man. You guys had to have been there. It was something out of the Twilight Zone. The first 15 minutes we met Michael, the way he moves, he reminded me of Data from freaking Star Trek. I was like,
yeah. All right. So that video, you guys can go find that video on my channel right here if you want to go check that one out. That's an oldie, another oldie. But we did.
Oh, yeah, here we are, man. I was like fat here, man. I was like 300 pounds. I just had back surgery.
Oh, remember this.
I can't believe the caddy made it through. Here's we go through the tunnel, man. We're listening to Slayer, if I remember correctly, but you obviously are changing the music. Yeah, there I am. The original music was much better. This was a great weekend, man. We and Jeremy were rocking out, man. There we are. Where's the CIA guy, man? Right there he was.
City, which could divide its time between anybody ever.
There he is.
Seriously talk. I don't know.
Oh, he was totally like, "You guys are ufologists?" And I was like, "No, I'm a physicist." And he got all nervous.
Yep. Clarksburg, he was from, that guy. And the weirdest thing, I'm going to tell you this right now. The guy we went down there to investigate was a guy by the name of Graham Barker, who was a UFO guy. And guess what Graham Barker is? There's Michael at the printer.
That's where he was for 7 hours straight.
Gray Barker is responsible for the Men in Black myth, if it's real or not. And when you hear stories about this Gray Barker guy, you have to question what he's all about and stuff. He lived down there and he created all kinds of stuff. You wouldn't believe all the UFO myths he's behind. But I want to tell you one thing that bothered me. We found out at the end that he would have liked me. He would have liked Jeremy. We found at the end the guy was a freaking pedo, man. Been in and out of jail. It's like, what? It's like, okay.
He used to get people drunk or like slip something in their drink and
rape them. And he was like 6'4" and built and stuff. He's a big, tall guy and stuff. They tell us this. That guy there told us that, didn't he, Jeremy? And I'm like,
he did.
There thinking like,
that's
the guy there. And I would have never went if I'd have known that, man.
I was just, that ruined it all at the end for me.
It did.
Man.
I wish I'd had cannabinoid.
You were just like, oh God. Yeah. Well,
I looked over at you and you looked at me and I'm like, what did we come here for? Well, at least we got to meet Michael.
Yeah, well,
Michael's still on the floor there. He didn't care.
It was a massive archive that this guy had and he collected. It was
him at the printer?
Sexual during the 50s when that sort of stuff was really frowned upon. And apparently more than just he raped people, so he was like not a
Ray
not a
Barker.
decent
And
guy.
it's known he was in prison stuff. But if you look, Michael's at the printer the entire time. Oh no, there he is. Play a little bit of it, Jeremy.
Yeah, the
Witchcraft
Mothman.
News, that was one of Barker's publications.
Oh, really? Look how little Michael
What's
is next
interesting
to
about
me.
it is when you have the Mothman right on there.
Yeah, but
A lot
Michael
of
goes
people
to
say
these
Mothman
libraries
is
and archives all over the U.S. and he literally copies everything and he brings it to his warehouse full of every UFO archive.
Yeah, 3 warehouses filled
Did they
with
talk to you
UFO
about
paper.
this, or did he talk to you about Gray Barker?
No, we talked actually. There was what they were doing was a sidebar on the Flatwoods Monster.
Oh, yeah.
And so I was there, and Barker cut his teeth on the, so to speak, on the Flatwoods Monster. That was his original involvement.
What's your belief on the Flatwoods Monster?
Oh yeah, he was behind that. He was behind the damn Mothman series. Behind a lot of stuff.
A friend of mine was
Yeah, like all the old 50s UFO stuff was Gray Barker, believe it or
What
not.
was the biggest one, Jeremy? The Philadelphia.
The biggest
experiment.
revelation was that Carl Allen or
Yep.
Carl Allende was responsible for writing the whole thing that started the Manhattan, the Philadelphia Project rumor.
Philadelphia experiment, yeah, where
Yeah,
the
the
where the
Philadelphia
ship
experiment.
disappeared and all that stuff. That was all crap with these guys here, man. They were hoaxers.
Yeah, but also that naval
Preston-
intelligence got a hold of it and later used it as disinformation.
Yes, exactly. I mean,
That was the key.
yeah, I mean, Jeremy and I are pretty smart. See, here's the difference between Jeremy and I and Michael, and this is no insult to Michael. Michael has a tendency to believe anything anybody tells him. He doesn't believe anybody lies. And I'm like,
Yeah.
Michael, everybody lie. There's tons of people that lie. We all lie, whether we want to admit it or not. I said, but some people, that's what they do for a living. And he
Right.
doesn't have a
Jeremy does it to get women, apparently.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean,
Jeremy
yeah.
Corbell.
Corbellion does it to get men.
Remember in the debate with Stanton Friedman, he's like, "Well, when he pointed out that Lazar lied about his education, Jeremy's response was, you never lied to get a girl? Come on."
I know. Well, you know what, he treated Stanton like crap, but Michael's just a guy that, he believes everything, and he doesn't have any filter for that. And me and Jeremy tried to help him with that. He just found it hard to believe that Gray Barker or anybody would bullshit. Now lately he's gotten to the point where he knows people bull crap and stuff, but we had a
the
great
Philadelphia case. Like, for example, Dan, right? You've got Al Bielek and Duncan Cameron and
Al Bielek, the time traveler.
Yeah.
Yep.
So-
I know all about Al Bielek.
Let me just say this much. I love that story. I thought it was so entertaining. Like, I thought it was a great story.
Sure, it is a great story.
I was thoroughly enthralled by it. I want to give him credit for having written something that in terms of what I believe, it was a fantastic fiction.
I've got something really bizarre to tell you about Al Bielek sometime that's so bizarre. I don't even know if I should tell it on here. His real name
Probably
was
not.
Eddie.
No, don't tell it on here, man.
Nah,
Save that.
probably not, yeah.
Yeah, no, okay.
Let's you know what, I gotta wrap this up now, guys. Anyway, we just hit the 2-hour mark and there's not a lot of people who have the attention span to go beyond
Yeah,
that.
I'm sorry, man, but
Great stream, guys. Awesome stream. Thank you everyone in the audience, especially that gentleman who jumped in to share his personal research and expertise on the Bendall stuff.
Yeah, dude.
Definitely.
Anytime, like, that was awesome that you hopped in and you had like good information and good research behind what you were gonna say. You were coordinated, so please do come back. Pretty cool, man.
Absolutely.
If anybody wants to join in, I can answer a few questions for about the next maybe 20 or so minutes, and then I'm out. So
one question I got for you, Jeremiah, is real quick: do you think let's say this is real? Okay, will this go anywhere?
It can.
Absolutely. Hey, I'm going to tell you, it is real. I have my one of my good friends, the kid I lived with when I lived in Colorado over 10 years ago, has been working on this for 10 years, on developing very similar stuff, and already has patents and like on this stuff, dude. And I'm going to bring him on. Like, I'm not like bullshitting about that or drifting or saying, it's coming, but it is, dude. And we're gonna I'm gonna work with him and a bunch of his team, and we're gonna build this behind the scenes and get it out, man. So anyone has any questions, you want to hang out behind the stream, jump on. Here's the link.
Right. Let's do
Come
that.
backstage. Jeremiah will be here. I'll be here for a little bit. I'm going to go grab a drink right now. And
Cool. Yeah, I'm going to do that too.
And wind down for a bit. But guys, thank you so much. Awesome stream tonight, guys. And there's someone pulling strings behind the scenes here to try to censor this information and make everyone think this is bullshit and pseudoscience and tinfoil hat crap. And that's not cool, because we know the same thing happened to Daniel Schechtman, you know, with Linus Pauling, Nobel Prize winning physicist. Linus Pauling called Daniel Schechtman a quasi-scientist for his work on quasi-crystals, which later won the Nobel Prize in chemistry. So be very careful what you call pseudoscience and what you call disinformation, what you call crackpot, who you call a whack job.
Colin Grant mentions Bob Lazar here towards the end. One thing that I still will say has got me so puzzled is the way Joe Rogan acted against all this 3-4 months ago. Wouldn't let the show air. The way he was towards Randall Carlson, a guy he respects for years. I've seen a number of interviews between him and Randall Carlson. I found Randall Carlson, right? Now, he goes against him, but he doesn't question Bob Lazar. I mean, are you fucking kidding me, man? It doesn't
make sense, man.
What is up with Joe Rogan, people? What is up with him? I don't get it.
I don't get it either, man. And we have plenty of experts here with credibility. I'm sure.
It's like he was told behind the scenes to do this, Jeremy. I swear. Am I right? Or
I think that's exactly right. I mean, perfectly said. I think that he was approached. He was given instructions. They were simple instructions. They were non-threatening. I think Rogan is a compliant kind of dude.
I think what happened is
big claim to fame is he can bring anybody on, right? Rogan has become sort of infamous for bringing a huge different variety of guests on. And one of the reasons is he's so neutral that it's programmable. So,
he's not the type to technically proficient enough to know anything about this, like Jeremy or you would be, to even question it.
I agree.
I don't think that makes him a terrible person, though, or anything like that.
No, but I think it makes him a controlled person.
He is controlled in the manner of speaking, that he knows what brings in the views and the help that he gets and the money that he gets.
The show never aired, or did it air recently?
He's never put it out, man. I don't think he's going to, because what I think happened is he was led to believe that this guy's a charlatan and a fraud, and you need to miss this and this and confront him and expose him. And after 2 hours of him getting his ass handed to him, he realized, I can't publish this because I'm gonna look like a freaking moron. You know what I mean?
Well, Randall Carlson shows that at the end, because Randall Carlson had his people film it, and I was just blown away. Like, wow. Well, why didn't he have his buddy Bob Lazar come down there and ask him, since he's Mr. Big Time Physicist? He could have did that, or had Bob on the phone.
Oh, hey, speaking of big time physicists, someone just joined. David,
oh man!
Oh man!
Wow. Okay.
Come to the after party, bro.
Let me take a side. See, I'm going to the bleachers now because we got a mainstream home run batter up on the plate.
What is your take on all this mess?
Well, let's see. I'm just joining in, so I haven't heard what you guys have been discussing, but I mean, it sounds like
your mic's super low and cutting out.
Can you pump up?
Yeah, I got to get a better mic.
Volume.
Say that again. Yeah, I got to get a better microphone, don't I? Can you guys hear me at all?
I can hear you much better when you're talking a little bit closer.
I have to just talk like directly into it. I mean, it sounds like he's saying there's some ether physics, right? I mean, essentially that's what he's saying. I don't know.
Oh.
I mean, we got these plasma. Well, let's go into the plasmoids, right? What's going on with the plasma?
Right. Pretend you've got 300 people in front of you and you're on the main stage, but your microphone is really quiet.
Very true. Very true. Well, so what are the definition of plasmoids? It's basically charge with magnetic fields. And if we go back to the ether, the idea was that matter was knotted vortices. So Compton was looking at the electron as a ring for Compton scattering.
Water and air.
So if you have this charge that could actually exist in ether and matter itself is this spinning charge, then all of fundamental particles are basically like plasma tubes flowing, like flows of ether going in a torus in a circle, and then the charge going in motion creates a magnetic field. So then you have your charge and your magnetism right there. So I guess that's a plasmoid, right?
Technically, any amount of charge that is unbalanced in its localized frame of reference, meaning any amount of charge that has a velocity relative to the observer's frame, is considered a part of a plasma. And a plasma is a superfield generated by all the individual nodes of each electric field generated through the relativistic motion of charged particles that do not have a proper balance in their immediate local reference frame, such as, ions, where if you have a non-ionized molecule, you're not going to have any kind of plasmatic response, but the ionized molecules, they will. So that's basically it. It's ionization, or it's unbalanced charge in motion.
And so I think the million-dollar question is, can the vacuum be ionized classically, yes or no?
Technically, it can be, and that's why we get positron-electron pair separation at 180 degrees at the Schwinger limit, and it's precisely why there is actually a confined limitation to the amount of local stress, energy, momentum that the vacuum can take before it decides to break apart into individuated physical matter of both a positron and an electron. So there's no reason why these things should come out of nowhere after absorbing exactly 1022 kilo electron volts, unless, of course, there was an ionization happening in the vacuum itself. You can consider that simply to be unbalanced charges, right? So you would look at it like the byproducts of ionization. Now, technically, you never destroy these particles. They never annihilate. They only recombine. So you separate them, and you can recombine them. They are not generated and annihilated. So it's a bit of a difference in terms of the proper functional theory and the one that we've been proposed and are told we should be bought and sold on. But these particles, there's no matter-antimatter annihilation. There's just recombination. And when they do recombine, they reach a minimum circulation distance, a minimum rotational distance from each other, and they form a nested field of magnetic moments that, because the speed of light, the velocity c, and their mass and their rotational velocity, generate a series of layers, and they reach a certain point where they interact with the next node or the next one of those matter-antimatter pairs in physical space-time. And so it's that interaction there where these things can rotate, these matter-antimatter pairs, which, if you actually look at a cross-sectional area of the first ring, is exactly the shape of the yin-yang. I wonder how the ancients knew about that shape, knew about the geometry of the natural interaction between these charged particles when they reach the smallest potential orbital diameter.
Definitely.
But that's really what I wanted to put into your head is to consider what's happening there at the fine structure. Why is there a Planck scale? And at the Planck scale, what are the individuated points that determine these jump distances or these Planck distances made of? Why are they there? And what might the properties of these individuated sections be? So here we have a very tangible explanation, and it happens to have been exposed during Schwinger's experiments.
Sorry, did you say Schwinger's experiments? What experiments?
Yeah, the Schwinger limit, the 1022 kilo electron volts, or 1.022 mega electron volt to photon interaction or to particle interaction, having sufficient energy to generate these antimatter matter pairs. Right.
So Maxwell's equations classically break down at high energy, and it's typically described in quantum electrodynamics as a one-loop renormalization. So that one-loop diagram is typically a quantum process, but once the electron-positron pair, or actually the lightest quark is what comes first, because there's some quarks with less mass than electrons and positrons. So that sets the scale for once you have enough energy density to put those things on shell. Once you have enough energy there at a high energy process where you get at a small scale, Maxwell's equations break down, and it's a type, you can sort of think of it as a quantum anomaly where the quantum fluctuations are more important than the classical solution. So you need a new classical theory. And so the Born-Infeld electrodynamics is the theory that comes out of QED as the high energy.
Can we pull
theory.
it up? The Born-Infeld, you said? Born-Infeld electrodynamics?
Born, B-O-R-N, yeah, Born-Infeld. So
I'd like to see that. So I'm not familiar with that. You're introducing me to it now, and I am actually very much looking forward to it.
It's two different people. So there's Max Born, and then Infeld. Let's see.
Who is that guy? Who
Chester?
we looking? Not just who are we looking for here, guys? I'm sorry.
I was mentioning Born and Infeld, I-N-F.
Oh, okay. Is Born B-J-O-R-N?
B-O-R-N.
No, Max Born.
Okay.
The father of quantum mechanics.
I was thinking of somebody else.
Am I the only one who got Solar sounded British for a minute there?
And what's the other guy's name? Feld?
Did I? That's funny because I had a British hat on.
That's
weird. I had a British hat
F-E-L-D?
on.
I-N-F.
You probably wouldn't like
I-N.
me.
6 letters.
Infeld.
Yeah.
My hat had 3 letters. On it.
Right here.
Yeah.
E something. Mm-hmm.
So it's a nonlinear theory of electrodynamics that satisfies
Yeah.
electromagnetic duality.
Okay.
Wow.
You got my
There's still
attention.
a reciprocal relationship between E and B, but it's no longer Maxwell's equations. Maxwell's equations pops out at the low energy limit of this theory.
A reciprocal relationship between what? E and V?
E and B, the
E
magnetic
and
field.
V. Oh, okay. I'd say E and V are the same thing, or voltage, right?
Not
Mm-mm.
You're
E
talking
as in
about
voltage,
energy.
but
I'm
E
sorry.
as in magnetic
Energy
field.
and I'm sorry. And what else?
The electric field and the magnetic field are field
Ian.
strengths, and so
Okay.
they form a 2 tensor in the relativistic formalism that's F mu nu, and so
Okay.
you see in that Lagrangian they have eta plus F.
Yeah.
So they're actually combining the space-time metric with the electromagnetic field strength.
Yeah,
Okay.
so
Was
if I
an
may,
idea.
Dan, like
You're one of these mathematician geniuses.
oh, Dan, yeah, David Chester is a mathematician genius, absolutely.
I've heard he
He's
is.
the smartest mathematician I've ever seen present. The stuff that he
Wow.
presented live has blown my mind. I mean, okay, I'm just gonna say this here, and this is a bit of a funny poke at Sarfati, but like, okay,
I was
David,
gonna say, what about Sarfati? Are you and him, bud?
David helped Sarfati fix his math. I'm just gonna say it. Like,
Oh, really? Wow.
David knows how Sarfati's mathematics works, and his brain is on it.
I mean, Jack's a little sloppy. I mean, he's good with some things, but he's overlooking other things. I mean, no one's perfect.
You know exactly where it is too, and I'm not even going to get into the math. Nobody wants to hear about it. The unfortunate fact is that nobody cares, right, David? Nobody cares. But
yeah, but the thing is that so there's this huge story about why I think there's a different theory. Like this has the wrong idea. So they're adding a metric to the field strength, the electric and magnetic fields.
What is it?
They're pretending it's like a part of the metric, which is
right, called the
strange
gauge
idea.
factor. The gauge factor is absolutely the metric that they've been superimposing over the top of all other localized measurements. And because the localized velocity c is supposed to remain constant, right? Forget about gradients and forget about these other more complex field interactions. We're just going to ignore those because they don't nicely fit into a 4-factor equation. And it's long been since time where we are not the children that we started out as in terms of being a species when we first started to distribute electricity in the modern era.
David, have
Kind
you
of
looked
a
at
better idea?
Have you looked at any of this stuff that we've been looking at the night before? Probably, right?
I mean, I'm just starting to get into some of. I mean, I haven't even looked into like Ken's shoulders very much yet. I'm just starting to look into it, but
the
yeah,
fact that you're that smart just makes me feel completely stupid. But
you're not alone in that.
Well, just imagine how Jeremy Corbell feels.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if Jeremiah's like struggling with it, that makes me. I'm like, holy shit. You know?
Listen, David is way smarter than me. Like by not a small amount either.
Do anything in the lab,
so I'm just saying, by not a small amount, David is way smarter than me.
I think you guys by right.
Anyways, but yeah. I mean, so there's actually a deep story about the ether that there's some mathematics that has been lost over time. It's not exactly lost, it's all in the literature. And surprisingly, it connects to string theory. And so there are these Hertz potentials from 1889, and that is essentially string theory.
In 1889?
Hertz. So Hertz.
Holy,
okay. Is that Heinrich Hertz, probably?
Sarfati style. No. That's funny.
These are pretty obscure.
Looking at those math equations, that reminded me of Sarfati immediately. He always goes, yeah, that looks right, yeah.
Yeah, that pi. See that pi? Isn't that like, who's ever seen that pi before?
It looks like something off the side of an alien spaceship that landed back in '87. And they were like, describe what you saw, sir. And that's what that looks like, man.
Okay. So let's simplify this, right? So in the first physics class that has calculus, oh my goodness, they have this notion of position, velocity, and acceleration, right?
Okay. Yeah.
And velocity is the derivative of position, a time derivative. And acceleration is a time derivative of velocity. And historically, well, we have F equals ma. So the mass times the acceleration gives a force, right? And we have these force fields. What's a field? It's a force field. So what's the position field? It must be two derivatives below the force field. And if we're talking about a medium, the ether, you would think that you would have some position of some medium. And so I'm still trying to understand the details of the precise physical picture, but as far as I can tell, there's concrete evidence that these Hertz potentials are related to the ether. But they're currently claimed to be completely unphysical and probably not even that mathematically useful. Maybe mathematically useful, but definitely not physical. Because Hertz himself did not believe that these were physical, at least publicly.
It's like the complex part of motion equations. It's not real, but it actually has some physical meaning, right?
Yeah,
Jeremy,
yeah,
are
exactly.
you good with this math at all, or is this not your?
Yeah, I took 4 semesters of calculus in college, so I know what he's talking about.
Mm-hmm. Well, no, I wasn't trying to insult you. I said, is this your type of forte? Because I know there's different types.
It's not my forte. I like the hardware and experimental stuff and that kind of stuff more. But you know,
Jeremy and I
just happen to master it. That's all.
Yeah, Jeremy and I are in the exact same category, Dan.
Yeah.
In terms of that, like we want to see where is the physical evidence. I want to put my hands on it. I want to be able to record it. I want to be able to document it. Where is the physical proof that this thing you're claiming exists? That's what we want to see.
Yeah, Jeremy wants to prove it with math. I get it, you know.
Well, no, it's not that. It's
good
no
stuff, man.
It's
I love
not
the theory.
Math allows us to figure out how to solve these systems.
Right, but it's like Jeremy just said, he loves the theory. The theory of it all is.
You have to love the theory because there's an amount of understanding that comes with this.
Right.
These are. Do you see radio waves? I mean, do you realistically see the photons that come from your flashlight before they hit?
No, I can't see alternating current, but I know it exists because we're experiencing it right now, just like plasma.
Right, Jeremy.
I know it exists. What's that?
Jeremy loves that. He loves the fact that you can understand that those things exist. He loves that they do exist, and he loves to play around with these unseen forces. That's part of his experience. And
if I want to see plasma and it's daytime, I can take a look at the sun because the sun's a big chunk of plasma.
So we have I see we have someone that just joined who's backstage, and just tell us who you are, man. I'd be happy to let you in. I just want a little background on it for you. And you know what? Maybe we'll take this backstage now, anyways.
Yeah, man, let's do it, man, because we got.
We were just gonna close it down about a half hour ago, but then David joined. So
does everybody have the link that wants to get in?
Guys, go check out David Chester's recent podcast on concrete with Daniel Jones, and check out his organization. It's called
That's where I saw
Quantum
him.
Gravity Research
Don't go
Foundation.
nowhere now. Don't go nowhere, David. Hang around, man. Hang around for the back show, Jesse.
He's on concrete, man.
For a minute.
Trying to figure him out from. He's on concrete. I love that show.
Yeah, concrete podcast. He's doing some awesome work. Chester, go check him out on if you're just finding us now and you want more, because there's plenty more where all this came from, man. All right, thank you guys. Don't forget to subscribe and become a member. And here's the link again to the backstage, and we'll see you all in a minute. I will keep this thing going, but I'm gonna close it down here on the
What's the backstage? Where's the backstage link at again? Right here.
It's posted in his chat.
I got it. I must have
Thanks.
copied the
Good
wrong
night,
one.
guys. There's the link if you want to join. There's only a few spots, so hurry up and get back here.